Welcome to The Gut Check, Nutrition and Gut Health for Active People, a podcast where we are talking functional nutrition for functional fitness and a functional you. Remember, if your gut is not functioning optimally, you are not functioning optimally. I am your host, registered dietitian and nutritionist, and OCR fan, Kate Klein. You can connect with me on Facebook at The Dublin Dietitian, or go to my website for additional resources, services, and the video recorded versions of these episodes at www.dublindietitian.com. That's DUBLINDIETITIAN. As a standard disclaimer, the information provided here is for educational purposes only. While I strive to provide accurate and helpful information to my listeners and viewers, I cannot take into account individualized circumstances. This is not a substitute for personalized nutrition, health, and medical advice from a health professional. If you are ready to get your personalized plan, you can go to dublindietitian.com and schedule a complimentary strategy session to get a game plan in place for you to hit your health and fitness goals. So let's get to it. Welcome back, Team Gut Check. Today is another one from the archives, one that Andee and I recorded back at the beginning of 2021, but I'm just now getting it edited into a Gut Check podcast episode. It is all about running. So if you've heard some of the earlier episodes where Andee talks about her background, she does have a major background in like exercise science from school and a lot of experience working with elite level coaching. She was one of the trainers that helped with, I believe it was the Bruins hockey teams and just other athletic groups. So she's got good training and experience, and she is sharing tips and pointers to get you started if you're new, some things to look out for to help prevent injury, some things to keep in mind if you feel like you're looking to improve your pace or you've plateaued, or if you've been struggling with any sort of pain issue. So we hit some beginner, intermediate, and advanced training tips. So again, whether you're starting, looking to just kind of improve, or really trying to push your performance, hopefully there is something here for you. And there are some visuals with this one as Andee demonstrates a couple little form things with her arms. I show some of my shoes that I use. So you might like the YouTube link in the show notes if you wanted to do that, but it's again not imperative. She describes it pretty well as we talk, but just keep it in mind if you want to go back and check that video out later. Again, I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And also, to give you a little sneak peek, runners and athletes, next week's guest is a physical therapist who specifically works with runners and OCR athletes for either preventing injury, or they go to her once they've been injured and she helps them recover, or just to help them accelerate their progress. So remember to subscribe to the Gut Check podcast and you'll get notified automatically when that comes out. Now let's get to it. And we have hit a realm of topics from nutrition and IBS and depression and stress, and we've talked sleep and poop and all kinds of things. And so what I wanted to talk about today is actually I want to get to kind of focus on Andee's know-how and knowledge again, because in talking with people just in general life and some of my clients and some of people in my Facebook groups, while there are, as always, kind of a realm of New Year's resolutions around health, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I want to start running, or I want to run a marathon, or I want to do an OCR. I'm rocking the Rugged Maniac here. That was my first one that addicted me, got me introduced. So I thought it'd be time, let's hit one on running or exercise, but kind of with a focus on the people who are trying to run specifically, since that is a very common resolution.
Big common goal is I'm going to run a blah this year.
Yeah. Or I want to start running to lose weight, or I want to compete, or I just want to finish. So I thought we could kind of hit a little bit about sort of like some first things, some bare basics. If you've never run before, some things that are important to know. If you've been running for a little bit, what's kind of the next step to kind of up your game, and then some things that we can talk about, like if you're already been running for a while but you're trying to boost your PR a little bit.
Yes.
And Andee, you have an amazing background as a personal trainer for elite athletes.
Yes.
So I thought this would be a great time to pick your brain for not only our audience, but I'm going to pick your brain.
Perfect.
Well, even though I'm a personal trainer, I'm sorry.
You can pick it, just don't make it bleed.
I only have an hour, so I'll be kind.
You won't make it bleed in an hour.
Because even though I am a personal trainer, I have done some OCRs. I grew up playing soccer and running. It was definitely never at that elite level.
Yeah.
So there's definitely knowledge there that I've learned, but I have also learned in the nutrition world, what you learn in textbooks doesn't even scratch the surface of those real life things. And actually, this was kind of interesting. It was something I know you and I had talked about before, and I was watching the Spartan Games, I think it was, that they just did like 4 seasons of all these elite athletes. They took like ultra endurance runners and cyclists and CrossFitters and Spartan racers, and they put them all in these like multi-dimensional, like heavy lifting and tug of war and wrestling and all this stuff. And one of the things one of the girls said is, she goes, this isn't what I normally do. I don't know how to fuel for this, and nobody will tell me. It's like trade secrets.
Yeah. It is. It very much is trade secrets, which is I have those trade secrets.
I won't pick too much.
But that's the nutrition trade secrets are a different, and fueling for these things is kind of a different conversation than getting started to do them. So we can
definitely hit kind of a 3 tiers here. So that's what I wanted to get into. Because I know that a lot of people in my Facebook group, the Thrive group, have said they wanted to run a marathon, run a half, do a 100-mile ultra marathon, run some OCRs. So there's different dynamics, but running is at the core of a lot of these. Yep. So getting into it, beginner tips if you've never run before.
So I cannot stress enough the importance of the very, very, very first thing that you should do is go out and get the right shoes for you. Now, I don't mean go to Dick's or wherever and get your favorite shoes that you like the most, that look good and fit okay. I mean, if you're gonna run, go to your local running shoe store where there are people who are trained enough to be able to help you look at your foot mechanics, look at your feet, and look at how you run and walk to get you in the right shoe for you.
I'm also going to pause for a second. I want to go grab, I have 3 different pairs of shoes for running in 3 different styles of running.
Yes, that's also
so let me grab those. I'm going to pause the recording real quick. So
okay.
You don't have to wait for that.
Do it. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm back. So I will show off my shoes. Now, just for those of you who are new to this, again, this is a little, once you get more into it and you need to refine, but I will just explain, like I have my regular running shoes when I'm running out on the streets. I have a second pair of shoes for if I'm doing a workout that includes running, like HIIT intervals or AMRAPs, or like I'm hopping on a treadmill and then lifting weights and back and forth.
Yep.
And then for my OCRs, I've got really, really grippy shoes. Yep. So we can talk about kind of the difference of these and what we're getting into, but the bare basics, as Andee's saying, is you need the right shoe for you. So
now, and what I'm going to say, the right shoe for you can vary. And I'm not saying just go get what's comfortable, and I'm not saying just go get what the person at Dick's says, oh yeah, it looks good. Because when you're running is actually, from a mechanical perspective, you are literally jumping from one foot to the other. You are when you run, you have a period of time in which you are literally both feet off the ground airborne, and you land on one feet, both feet off of the ground airborne, you land on the other feet, both feet off of the ground. So it's a different kind of thing. Now, exactly. Thank you, Kate. And when you're doing that, you also have, there's different parts of the gait cycle. So you have heel strike, which is when the heel of your foot hits the ground. You push forward onto your midfoot, and then you have toe off. So heel strike, midfoot, toe off. Heel strike, midfoot, toe off. So for every one of those jumps, in between in the air, your foot, when it lands, is doing this heel strike, midfoot, toe off, heel strike, midfoot, toe off. You don't want to have a heavy heel strike.
Okay. I was saying, now from what my learning and my own personal experience, okay, continue.
So,
heel strike discussion.
Right. And that's a running mechanics issue. So for most runners, when they first start out, because running is a different motion than walking, and walking has more of that heel strike, midfoot, toe off, heel strike, midfoot, toe off mechanics. When you run, you really don't land with a heavy heel strike. You really land more with a flat heel midfoot push off.
I'm gonna do like a pancake hit, right?
So it's more of a pancake hit. It's almost
to the balls of your foot almost.
And then it comes off. So you're gonna land
with, like if this is your shoe, instead of hitting down like that, man, it looks so big compared.
Right.
So instead of hitting down like that, you kind of want to aim for like a, is that what you're saying? Kind of mid strike to toe?
Now and that is mechanically different than walking. So part of the real important thing with getting the right shoe for your foot is your foot is not just one solid piece of foot. You actually have your heel, your midfoot, and your forefoot. And those three pieces of your foot have independent functions as part of the running mechanics. So if you don't have enough arch support, you're going to overpronate. If you have too much arch support, you're going to oversupinate. So your foot might fall in too far. Your foot might not be able to fall in far enough.
Yeah, and one of the things I learned, like if you look at the back of your shoes, you don't really see it on this one because I've worked hard to correct it, but you can see like a major wearing on one side of the shoe or the other if you tend to roll out or roll in, and that can kind of give you some clues. Do you not have a nice even foot strike, and are you pronating? Because that puts a lot of pressure on the foot, which ricochets up to the knee, to the back, and so on.
Exactly.
So check the backs of your shoes.
So check the backs. That's a great starting point as well. And also, here's the other thing: if you're wearing your sneakers, if you're wearing your tennis shoes as like knockarounds all the time, you want to have a separate pair that you keep for running, because the wear and tear that you put on those shoes for running is enough that you can take those shoes and then they can become your knockaround shoes. But if you have a pair of knockaround tennis shoes, those are probably not, they're probably already too worn out to become your running shoes. So, and it doesn't need to be a huge investment. You know, a good pair of shoes that are right for your feet can be very inexpensive. If you're me, they're not, because there is literally one shoe that it's hysterical. There is one shoe that works for my foot just because I have a anatomically rare foot type, just as how it is.
It's you, Andee.
Well, no, it's just Andrew actually has the same foot.
Oh.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So there's like literally one shoe, and that's the shoe that we both get. So in some cases it's not cheap, but typically speaking,
for the 80%,
something that's going to be within
hitting average.
Yeah, on average, you're going to be able to find something that's within a reasonable budget that's going to be good for your shoe, good for your foot.
Yeah, so kind of just to summarize that, first thing, absolutely, because of our natural propensity to walk heel strike, and because of the fact that most of us are kind of out of alignment just because of life and things, it's very important to have the right shoes and have a trained professional help you realize what you're doing and what your gait is, so that you can have a shoe that's going to protect your foot and your ankle, because that stability, again,
goes all the way up.
Waves all the way up the body.
That all the way up is what we call the kinetic chain.
Yes, I love the kinetic chain. It's fascinating.
Love the kinetic chain.
So yeah, before you even get out running, have proper shoes. So I have, I don't have an association with a specific store, but over my years, I've done Bob Ronker's in Cincinnati, was one of my absolute favorites. I've gone to Roadrunner, I think it was.
Roadrunner is decent. Front Runner is decent.
Front Runner, that's another one. Second Soul, I think it
Fleet
was.
Feet is
Yeah.
another
So
decent
all these stores that are specifically tailored towards running shoes are going to be where you're going to find the best trained people.
Yeah.
I have had luck at REI. It did happen.
Yeah.
That's actually where I got introduced to my trail shoe. And he did a phenomenal job, but I don't know how well trained Dick's Peoples are. REI, I do know, is pretty well trained as well.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, typically once you find a good shoe, once you know what works for you, unless something magically and massively changes with your body mechanics, like you have a hip replacement,
Otherwise it should
stay the same. And then, it just makes it easier to like say, oh, okay, great. I can get last year's model on Amazon for half off because they don't make that color anymore. Great. Who cares?
And I've definitely had clients who, when they were in some of like my group fitness classes and we were using a lot of treadmill, she was complaining about her knee pain. And sure enough, like all she had to do is go and she bought a legit pair of shoes, of running shoes for the treads. And she said knee pain was gone within like a day or two.
It makes a huge, like, and that honestly, that right there is your number one. Anybody who's complaining of pain when they're running, for me, anything, knees, shoulders, back, neck, whatever, I look at their feet, and that's typically like the starting point, and you can fix a lot of problems there. So that's step one, make sure you've got a good running shoe. Step two, start low, go slow. The worst thing that you want is to be like, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm 3 miles from home and I no longer feel good. And I'm 3 miles from home. So, personally, I recommend starting out somewhere where you have flat surfaces. And I also recommend trying to stay in an area that has sidewalks, or if you're gonna run a little bit out away from the edge of the road. Wear reflective gear. Please wear brightly colored clothing. Do all of the safety things. And the reason why is as you get closer to the edge of the road, or if you get closer to the edge of the sidewalk, it naturally slopes down. And so if you're running on a naturally sloped surface, even if it's only sloped a little bit, you're actually changing your mechanics, because now you have one hip that's lower than the other, and you're running with one leg shorter than the other and one leg longer than the other, and that's going to like make your back angry and everything else angry. So try to run, on the inside of the sidewalk. If you're running on the road, try to stay a little bit more away from the edge of the road where it meets the grass. Try to give yourself a little bit of space so that you're on that nicer, flatter surface. Same thing goes for any trails that you're running on. You want to try to stick to the middle. Even if if nobody's coming your way, run in the middle. It's fine. If somebody's coming your way, move over. It's the nice thing to do, but feel free to go back to that center of the path, because here again, you're going to do wonders for your hips by staying on that more level part where you're getting even ground. And the other big thing that I see with a lot of runners, especially early on, is what you're doing with your upper body is just as important than what you're doing with your lower body. With your lower body, you're running, right? I mean, one foot in front of the other, you're moving at a slightly faster pace than, whatever that pace is. But with runners, I see this.
Yep, the crossbody swing.
The crossbody swing. This does nothing for you. What this does, here, I'm gonna show you what this does from behind.
You see that hip shifting, that major swing of the spine and the hip rotation.
You're getting hip rotation. You're doing the twist. What is more important is And you want to think about holding potato chips so that you don't crush them. I don't want fists. You want to think about holding a potato chip that you can't crush. And you want to think about arm drive. So when I'm doing this, my knuckles are brushing my hip and I'm keeping my elbow at a 90 degree. So this is actually a really good exercise for folks to do at home before they run. Sit on the ground.
I do want to point out real quick while you're getting into this, because I feel like on some level people might be like, oh my God, this is so nitpicky. Like, where do you run on the road? What are your hands doing? But I think one of the important points of this is you're building muscle memory if you've never run before. And so it's important to be aware of this early on.
And you're going to avoid injury. This is going to help you make the habit and want to stick with the habit without getting overuse injuries, without developing problems, without things that are going to make you be like, oh, I really don't want to run. My back is killing me. I really don't want to run.
Yeah, but I think instead of getting too much into all these nuances, maybe just kind of summing it up, like get a coach or take a class or, you know, do something to make sure your form is right. Like this is a great example of how nuanced it can get and how important it is because, yeah, things like the heel strike, I had bad knees. I've had to have surgery on it. And they were expecting to need surgery on the second knee as well. And then I read a book called Born to Run, learned about running form, took a class where they actually like videotaped us from different strides and angles, and fixing that, I no longer had knee issues when running.
So here's the thing. Yeah. I'm sitting here doing the arm motion thing. If you're doing the arm motion thing correctly, ooh, I just lost my keyboard. If you're doing the arm motion thing correctly, your butt should be bouncing. So even if you're sitting in the chair, your knuckles should not hit the chair and your butt should, and you will bounce.
You get that little move going. So yeah, so make sure you've got the good shoes, get someone to help you with the form because there are all these nuances, the way you lean, the way your head is, and we don't want to get into that because that is overwhelming right off the bat, but it's important to be mindful of it, to realize if you go running, you're like, I hate it because it hurts. There might be a reason it hurts. And that's something you can look at.
And there's some really easy things that, like I said, you can do to kind of help prep. Sitting in your chair, just doing this.
And just being aware of that, being aware of how your foot's striking. And I think that the start low, go slow is also really important. Because a lot of people, they just go, and I always, going to call out my dad here. He wanted to get into running because I was doing it and he thought maybe he could train up and go for an OCR. And so we discussed doing intervals. And so it's supposed to be like, let's walk, let's jog, and we'll get to the details. But in his mind, I don't jog, I run. So he'd run till he was exhausted, then he'd walk. And then he'd run. So I hear this, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I start running and I can't even make it more than like a minute and I'm dying. Like, you can slow down.
I gotta tell you,
shrink the pace. It's okay. Slow.
Couch to 5Ks are great. And I say that they are great because you run for a minute, you walk for 4 minutes. You run for a minute, you walk for 4 minutes. You run for 2 minutes, you walk for 3 minutes. You run for 3 minutes, you walk for 2 minutes. It actually builds you up in a methodical way. Now, if you can go faster than that particular couch to 5K is going, awesome. But it's a really good, it's a very metered and progressed way to start out. If you're not a runner, if you haven't run in the past, if you're not a former athlete, if you're someone who is carrying a lot of extra body mass, but you want to start somewhere, those are really great parts to start. You know, running for a minute, walking for 4 minutes, running for a minute, walking for 4 minutes, doing that for a half an hour, you've still done a half an hour's worth of activity.
Yeah.
Which is a half an hour more than you would have been doing.
Yes.
Awesome place to start.
And I would say just play around with pace, because I think a lot of people do try to go really fast. They try to run. And yes, you can interval that and you can improve, but also don't don't be afraid to try to pull it back, take smaller steps, move move the rotation of the, just move a little more slowly and play with that, play with stride length and find what feels kind of most comfortable for you. But yeah, just be aware, like a lot of new people just kind of run out the bat. It's okay to jog. It's okay to go a little slower, take breaks to walk, listen to your body. And yeah, if you've never done it before, you might hurt a little and the next day your muscles might be a little tired. That's okay.
Yep. Drink water, lots of water. Lots of water is always good.
Yeah.
So those are our beginners.
Yes. Very important. Get the good shoes, work with someone to help you on form. Start low, go slow, take your time. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, I like that one. Take your time. It's fine. We're going to have to, Kate, we're going to have like a whole thing of like catchphrases now.
Our catchphrases and our topic list. So now let's say there's someone, Andee, who's been running a little while longer. Maybe they've run like the occasional 5K, or they like go out running week to week, but they're not seeing much progress. Like their 5K pace isn't getting much faster and they just want to kind of get a little faster. What?
Strength train.
Okay, talk about that.
It seems counterintuitive, but what do we need to run? We need muscles to run, right? It's what powers the actual running activity. If you have two things, muscle strength and muscle endurance, both of those come more with strength training than they do with just running. Glutes, 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 hamstrings, glutes, 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 core, glutes, core, glutes, core, core, glutes, 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 core, glutes, core, hamstrings. Did I say any of those things?
So I'm supposed to work my what now? My glutes? What are my glutes?
So your glutes are your butt. Your glutes are supposed to be your primary movers in all upright activities. Allow me to say that again. Your glutes are supposed to be your primary movers in all upright activities, especially running. What do we do all day? We sit on them.
Stretching them out and making them weak.
We stretch them out, we make them weak all day long.
So, and that's so important. I used to joke with one of the trainers at Lifetime. I said, I'm going to do a class called Guts and Butts. And you can choose the workout style or the nutrition style. Because if you work out, your glutes and your core are some of the most critical things to all the knee pain, back pain issues we have. My back pain, a lot of it stemmed from weak core and weak glutes. And then we'll do the nutrition side because your digestion and your elimination and your gut health, like that's all important. He's just like, that would actually be really good. You're right. Everything does seem to stem from weak glutes. But anyway, so there is this idea that strength training, I'm trying to go faster. I don't want more muscle mass that's going to slow me down.
So you're not necessarily needing to build muscle mass. You don't need to say, hey, let me go ahead and slap 5 more pounds of muscle on each glute. No. Your glutes are supposed to be your primary power movers. They are supposed to be the largest muscles in our bodies. Notice I'm saying supposed to be because for most of us, they aren't. For most of us, our hamstrings have taken over, our low backs have taken over. I cannot tell you how many people can't even find and fire their glute correctly. If I say, fire your glute, and they're like, I am. And I'm like, no, you're not.
I want to see dimplage. Clench.
Clench. Bring them together. If you can't do it one-sided, bring your other leg into a figure 4. Strength training your glutes is of the utmost importance. That is like, so in terms of what I do when I like intervene if I am assessing someone and trying to help them improve their running time. First thing I have them do is I'm looking at, what are you doing up here when you're running? Second thing I'm looking at is, what are your glutes doing? Can you even find them? Are you using them when you run? Because I can't even tell you how many people are just running solely on hamstring strength, which let's just talk about how bad that is.
How tight runners are. That's notorious. Tight hammies.
Yeah, tight hammies and like, if your hammies are tight, you don't need to, you can foam roll them. It's not going to help long term. It might give you some relief, but it's not going to do anything long term.
Because you're not fixing the root problem, that
you're not
your
fixing
glutes are not engaging properly.
Exactly, because you're not fixing the problem. You need to engage the glute and get the glute to fire in order to overcome that issue. So that's always sort of my second go-to, is after I've fixed up here, what are your glutes doing? So getting those
first, muscle trigger second kind of thing.
Yep, exactly. So getting those glutes to power is really important. And then also, you know, kind of what your core doing with that. Here again, a lot of times core strength starts to fix itself when you start engaging those glutes, because you naturally
encourage people to actually kind of engage their core a little bit while running, or do you just say like let your belly out?
I try to encourage people to have good posture, because in having good posture, you're going to engage, it's called your transversus abdominis. It's the muscle that wraps around from your back to your front, transverse, that's why, or goes around. And it's basically the suck it in muscle. Now, can you run with it sucked in? No, but you can feel what it's like to engage that. And it's very, very difficult to fire your glutes and not naturally engage some of that transversus abdominis.
Indeed.
So in doing so, if you're training your glutes, you're going to start grabbing some of that transversus abdominis, and the co-contraction of those two help build that core and help build that stability to help drive you forward.
Okay. So for those of you who have never trained your glutes, I would say work with the trainer who can properly watch your form and make sure you're doing things right. For those who are familiar with common gym moves, what are some glute exercises you recommend?
Gosh, there's any variety of them. Squats are good for glutes if you're doing squats correctly.
You're doing them right. Yeah, that's what I always tell people. If you feel it in your quads, you're probably not
if you're
feeling
feeling
it right. You can do a quad bearing.
I say if you're feeling it in your quads, you're not doing it right. Squats are actually a butt move.
They'll engage the quads, but
yeah,
you should have a sore tushy in the next day too.
Yeah. Starting squats, Mark Repito is a great place. If you don't know, if you're not sure you're doing a squat correctly, he's a great way to find out if you are. And there's some good tips to help kind of figure that out. Other good exercises for squats are bridges and a marching bridge. So lying on your back, feet bent, lift your butt up.
Very suggestive move.
And then can you march? And when I mean march, I mean keeping your butt elevated and not letting your hips drop. So keep the butt elevated, lift one leg, lift the other leg, lift one leg, lift the other leg. So there's all sorts of different exercises that you can do to train the glutes. But those are some good ones.
Some of the good basic
starting points. And the nice thing about a bridge, especially a marching bridge, also engages some of that transversus abdominis. Another nice thing about a bridge is that if you're feeling it in your hamstrings, you know that you've been depending upon your hamstrings too much, and that you have glute weakness.
Yeah.
And also if when you're in your bridge and you're trying to march, one hip is dropping and the other hip is dropping, you know that you don't have the good transversus abdominis strength that you need as well. So that's pretty good. It's a nice kind of 2-for-1 exercise to kind of check and see where you're at with that.
Yeah, and I know when I would work with people doing things like squats or deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts, you know, it was a lot of teaching, like intentionally clench your butt. Like imagine I'm gonna smack you on the butt, or imagine like you're holding something, and like they're sometimes at first, because like you said, people don't know how to trigger. We're not in that habit. So I'd kind of work with them to intentionally clench to start learning what that should feel like.
And quite frankly, that's an exercise that you can do when you're brushing your teeth. You can do
Do
it when
it right now.
dishes. You can do it when you're, you know, I'm doing it right now. Up, down, clench, down, clench, down.
But so many times, yeah, if you've been trying to do squats or deadlifts or RDLs, and you have like knee or back pain, a lot of times I find it comes from you're bearing the weight either like in your heels or your toes, you're not solid, or you're not engaging your glutes, so you're losing that support. And so now your piriformis is taking over and giving you sciatic nerve issues, or your low back's taking over and pinching things. Yes. So if you've been doing these workouts and you're like, my back hurts, you're probably work with a trainer to be sure, but you're probably not firing your glutes the way you need to be. And so your back and knees are trying to compensate for you.
And you can do glute squeezes all the time. You can do them sitting down, you can do them standing up, you can do them doing the dishes, you can do them single-legged, you can do them, I mean, there's you can do glute squeezes all day long, and I encourage you to do glute squeezes all day long, because finding those muscles and finding that firing pattern can take a long time. I mean, let me just tell you about the party my physical therapist threw the day that I found my glutes again after my hip replacement. It was like, oh my God, she found her glutes again! I was like,
beauty is so important.
Believe me, it was like, okay, it's there. We see that this muscle is still there. I couldn't find it to fire it, and when I pathway, and that can't be. I cannot tell you how important that is. So
strength training in general.
Do it
now. So is that okay to then like pick up little 2-pound weights and start doing squats? I know a lot of, again, there's this misconception for females that if I lift weights, I'm going to bulk and I'm not going to like the way I look. Now, I'm not saying that women cannot put on muscle like that, but
it is
difficult.
It is very unlikely. The amount of work that it takes to make muscle hypertrophy is very different.
Hypertrophy meaning?
Hypertrophy, make it big. Making it big versus making it work and making it functional, two totally different things. The amount of weight that it takes to hypertrophy a muscle and make it big is way different than the amount of weights that it takes to strength train and benefit from strength training those muscles for running, or even just like daily life, right? I mean, like we could all benefit from stronger glutes in daily life. But it is, let me rephrase. I don't have a slow twitch muscle fiber in my body. I'm all
slow twitch. It's awful.
See, I am all 2D. I am all power lifting sprint muscles.
I'm all yoga and jog, and I'm trying to train that out of me.
Yeah, I am. By the way, Kate, you can't train it out. It's genetics.
I'm making it happen.
Muscle fiber type doesn't change.
My sprint has gotten much better.
Well, good. Then you are training effectively, but you're not changing your muscle fiber type.
I'm trying. I'm training my small amount of power muscles.
There you go. So
enhancing their abilities.
If you are someone like me, I can throw on Olympic weights and bulk up real fast if I wanted to, but that's just because of my particular genetics. I'm weird. And
but ultimately, sorry, go ahead.
I would say, but even then, I would have to do a lot of strength training. I mean, we were talking, I was doing the workouts that I was doing with my professional athletes twice a day, and I was bulking up. So we're talking 2-hour sessions of heavy Olympic lifting 5 to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's when I was bulking up.
Yeah. So kind of just to address that thing. Yeah. I know a lot of females are afraid of getting bulky. So they're going to be like, well, I'm going to do 50 reps of something. And yeah, unless you're getting into this like 8 to 10 rep, super heavy. And again, the fuel changes. The way you feed yourself has to change for that to happen too. So,
unless you're like Olympic powerlifting, you're not going to bulk by strength training.
Especially if you're not doing this like daily. So if you had runners, let's say someone's doing like 4 or 5 days a week, but they're ready to kind of boost and they want to start strength training, how would you recommend they do that? Drop one of the running days or just incorporate and add an extra day? Take time off?
I always
just a kind of a starting.
There should always be a rest day, whether it's an active rest day, like doing some yoga or, you know, a little bit of light strength, you know, light stretching or get, you know, maybe a little bit of light swimming. There should always be some form of like rest day where you're not running or lifting. If you're a 4-day a week runner, I would say you should try to go for strength training 3 days a week, ideally, to get enough benefit to really build some of that additional muscle that you need to benefit your running. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be a full workout day. You know, you can have a day where you do a light run and only glutes, you know, only legs kind of thing. But I would say 2 to 3 days of strength training is what you really want to shoot for to be able to make that type of effective change in order to gain enough muscle to benefit from the strength training. Now,
and is it okay to double up days, or would you recommend like
what do you mean double up days? Like,
so like if you go for a run, can you do strength training that day? Like assuming we're doing, let's say, a 30 to 45 minute workout.
You know, I would say this, if you are
or is that getting too nitpicky, and at this point just say like, just start lifting?
Yeah, so, you know, 2 to 3 days of lifting. If you're going to double up, if you're going to do a lifting and running day, that's fine. I would make sure that you follow and have your rest day be after that. I wouldn't necessarily do a full run and a full lift. I might do a lighter run and just focus on glutes and core.
Integrated in there, probably work with a professional who can help you schedule your workouts to time that up so that you're not overtraining or risking injury from overuse of muscle. But ultimately be aware that strength training should occur to be that next tier.
Strength training will help you get to that next level of what you're looking to get, whether that's improving your time, improving your endurance, or prepping you for a race. Strength training is important to really, if you're in that intermediate level, if you're not just a beginner, you should be incorporating some type of strength training in there to really get the most out of your running.
Very cool.
Now, category.
So now let's say you've got a person who is a pretty decent runner. They can go decent duration, go good pace. They're kind of maybe starting to get into the nitty gritties. Maybe they're already lifting because, you know, I know a lot of marathoners who don't lift, but I know some who do. Obstacle course race, obviously, there's a lot of full body strength training that goes into those training programs. So how do you tell people to kind of balance that? You mentioned with your Olympic athletes, you have people doing 2 hours a day of lifting.
At least.
So
Yep.
athletic level, how many hours a day can a person train? And obviously, disclaimer, you've got to work your way up to that and do it safely so that
Right.
you're not damaging yourself. But
Disclaimer, it really depends upon, who you are, what you're doing, what you're trying to do, etc. It is not unheard of,
well, because like triathletes, when they're training, they can go and have to do like a 6-hour run or 7-hour bike ride every weekend.
Yeah, I've had athletes who are training, 8 hours in a day, depending upon their sport and depending upon what they're doing, whether it's a triathlete who's going on a long distance bike ride and then lifting, or someone who's going on a long distance run and then lifting, or doing a whole lot of lifting and then a whole lot of swimming. The upward bounds are really limited by the person. For your average elite level, semi-professional, like hardcore, your folks that are doing your Ironmans, your folks that are like, I am a triathlete and they do multiple triathlons, or I am an OCR person and they do multiple OCRs, or I am a CrossFitter and they, compete. I mean, realistically, it's not out of the realm of possibility to be able to do 2.5 hours of heavy lifting and then an hour of high intensity cross training with sprint conditioning, and then a 2-hour long distance endurance piece as well. So I mean, realistically, I've had people that it's like, okay, today's your 8-hour day and we're gonna do this, and this. Great. Most people don't do that.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back to the running then. That's kind of where what we're focusing on, because we could get into diverse training skills needed for a triathlete versus a marathoner versus an OCR.
Right.
But so if you've got someone who they've got a pretty solid background in running, they strength train to try to help with that. What are things they can do with their running protocol specifically to also help enhance their performance?
So I think one of the biggest things that runners miss is interval training. And I can't tell you how important interval training is for your runners, for your long distance runners. And what I mean by interval training is like basically sprint training. So even though you might be a long distance runner, getting out there and doing sprints that are, I sprint, I'm thinking if you're out on a track, you sprint 100-yard dash and then you jog the remaining 330, and then you sprint 100 and then you jog the remaining 300, and then you sprint 100 and you jog the remaining. So that type of
sprint and recover.
Yeah, sprint and recover. You can run with a weight vest. That's another great way to up your running game as well, because now you're running with additional weight on your body.
You can't breathe as well.
You can't breathe as well. Don't get me wrong. You cannot breathe as well.
I felt so badass after finishing my first weighted vest run. Though I was just like, yes.
Right?
Even though I was like gasping and dying, and I had to take breaks to walk, but it was empowering.
Another thing that you can do is sled training. They're called weight sleds. You wear a harness, you throw weights on them, and you sprint and you tow these weights behind you. In my case, last time I did sled training, it was for real in the snow with an actual sled and a 35-pound toddler in the back. and I was not running, I was slogging through snow, but I was like, God, this really is sled training. I think this is how someone came up with this.
That's how
I
they
feel
came
like
up with
my
it.
Cinnamon
So
dog.
ultimately, it sounds like you're saying basically, if you're running to run, you need to push your heart rate, endurance, and or muscle boundaries at points with this.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
even if you've been heavy lifting and doing kind of your Olympic lifting or CrossFit lifting or squat rack work, and you then go out and do like a 10-mile run or 5-mile run, whatever, it's important to also incorporate either making the musculature work more by putting on a weighted vest,
Make the cardiovascular system work harder
by sprinting. So hills, would hills be?
Hill, I would say and that was where I was going to go next, is hill training.
I love hate hills.
Yeah, love hate hills. And the reason why I say love hate hills is because going up sucks. Going down is nice. Going up sucks. Going down is really nice. Going up sucks. And like every time you go up, you're like, this is worse every time. But hills are another really great way to do that. And there's a variety of hills. You can do short, fast, steep hills. You can do long, slow, gradual incline hills. You can do hills on the side of Antrim Park, you know, where there's everything from like a vertical like this to a nice, like more gradual.
So mix it up in one way or another.
Mixing it up as well. If there's some place where you have a variety of places that you can do it. Stairs are another nice alternative if you're a runner and you have the opportunity to
kind of looking at like cardio cross training.
It's kind of a cross training thing, but it kind of does some of that same different challenge to your muscles as well as a different challenge to your cardiovascular system.
Now, is there, because I've read a couple different things, like when I first learned about like Tabata training, it was very specific that it's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 8 rounds, and then you were supposed to be done. Is there some validity to that or anything? It's kind of like you do what your body's able to do.
Do what your body's able to do. The way we used to run Tabata training was literally as fast and as hard as you can go for as long as you can, and then your recovery period until your resting heart rate returned to normal, and then go again.
So there's not some magic ratio of work to rest time or number of rounds, so long as you're listening to your body, being mindful, fueling and recovering well so you don't injure yourself.
Yep. Basically that's it. And I mean, and in some cases you can do kind of overtraining as a term with Tabata. You can overtrain Tabata intentionally, where you do like, okay, 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off. And you're going to do 10 rounds of that. And like, you might be dead at the end of that 10 rounds, but that's a specific type of high intensity training that's not really necessarily Tabata, and it's not really necessary to do. Quite frankly, I have always ascribed more to the school of listen to your body, go as hard as you can, rest until you have recovered, then go as hard as you can, rest until you've recovered. Because in my experience, when you're doing the very regimented time cycle stuff is typically when you see people injure themselves. That's just been my experience, but that is typically because if you're not quite necessarily ready to start again. But here again, that was more of the high level.
And so are you able to talk to the physiology of how this improves your speed and performance? Because I know some of the things I've learned from a kind of a biophys side, but I'm curious what you've learned in your training. About like the balance of high intensity with low intensity training, because they both have their place and they both are very important. And how do they change the body differently?
Yeah, so they change the body very differently. So high intensity training versus low intensity training. So
And let's
You're
kind of
challenging
still sticking with the
different
running side of that.
So you're challenging different aspects of the physiology. You're challenging how and what your body is accessing to create and utilize energy. You're challenging how your body utilizes and recovers utilization of oxygen. You're challenging how well your muscle stores can tolerate the buildup of metabolic byproduct before you have to flush it out. There's so many different complex biophysiology systems that get challenged in different ways depending upon if you're doing high intensity training, if you're doing more low intensity training, etc., which is why having this medley of different things is going to improve performance overall, because in each one of these different types of training that we're doing, we are really addressing multiple body systems on a structural level, but we're also challenging how the body utilizes energy, how the body flushes energy byproducts, the tolerance that the body has for those byproducts at a given point in time until it's like, I can't anymore, I have to flush this. So there's so many different components to it that's part of the reason why cross training is important, because it helps
you want to be
grow in all
durable
different directions, right? Instead of just saying, I'm going to grow, like, it's like a plant. You can put a plant on a stick and it'll grow straight up. Or you can put a plant in a pot and it's going to grow out, it's going to grow up, the roots are going to grow down, you might have to repot it, there's all sorts of different things that happen. So what we want is, if we think about, to use that plant analogy, we want roots to grow, we want leaves to grow, we want the tree, we want this bush to, sort of round out, we want it to get taller, we want it to develop more internal leaves, we want it to do all of these different things. And
yes,
that's why we need to train in different ways to encourage that growth and encourage those physical adaptations, rather than just saying, hey, we're going to do this one particular type of training, and that one particular type of training allows that tree to grow straight up on this stick.
Great. Yeah, so being diverse, and I don't want to go down this road too much, but just it's actually a topic that we probably should do, because I know another kind of common, yes, it's true, but it's the misconception is also there, this idea that, oh, well, a lower heart rate means I'm burning more fat.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that specifically later. It's kind of yes and no, but so what I know, I worked with people and we'd kind of deal with like heart rate zones and rate of perceived exertion. And so what I had learned, and just, feedback if this is right or off base. So training low, make sure, first of all, it helped with building up just general endurance.
Yep.
And it also boosted the production of mitochondria in your body, which are your energy sources. So low training, and it also started to help teach your body to use fat for fuel, which is part of that misconception. So learning to teach your body to use fat for fuel, boosting the mitochondria in your body so that you actually can create more energy in your body day to day, and then working on just good general endurance. So these were all important for low training. And then we'd hit the high training. And what I learned there is like, it's strengthening your heart and it's building your lung capacity because you're gasping and pounding.
Huge.
And the thing that I thought was cool, because your body is trying to make more blood get to all these muscles that are getting used up and you need oxygen, that it actually can create more like capillaries and vasculature to get blood everywhere. And blood is what carries your oxygen and it carries your nutrients. And also still wearing that dietitian hat.
Flushes all your toxins and brings all your nutrients. Yep, absolutely.
So, so we get these better blood flow. So there's these literal physiological changes in your body, in addition, that not only is it going to be good for your health and your heart and your lungs and your bloods, your whole circulation, but then again, kind of coming back to these athletes or athletic people, recreational athletes is kind of what I consider most of the people I work with, I don't work elite, but kind of athletic, competitive. So yeah, again, getting these, it's going to be the stronger heart, the better lung capacity. So training in both systems.
Yep.
That's an important point. So what would you tell someone about how to balance it? Because I've read different things on that. I've had some trainers, it's like we literally were grinding 6 days a week. And then we might do light, like HIIT training and heavy lifting and boxing. And then we might do light cardio in the end of the day for like the second workout later in the day as sort of recovery workout, but other days it was sprints. And then I've read more about Phil Maffetone, and he recommends like 80% of your training for, he works not with all athletes, more like marathoners and triathletes, where his belief is 80% of the time we should be at a very low heart rate and really focus on that aerobic conditioning and only do about like once a week comparatively doing sprints, or maybe even once every other week doing sprints, which to me just drives me crazy because I'm like, I want to do more, but I don't know. I'm not that elite level. How do you balance it?
If we're talking specifically about running, yes. More lower endurance, and then, you know, somewhere, I wouldn't necessarily say only 20%. I would say closer to 30% should be more of your high intensity training.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be it doesn't necessarily need to be broken out on a week by week basis. Like we would break it out on almost like a daily basis. So you would do the first 20 minutes of your workout would be that high intensity chunk of whatever your workout was. And then the remainder of your workout would be more of that aerobic zone versus the anaerobic zone.
Okay, so even within a workout, you would do a combination.
Yeah, even within a workout, that's how we typically would structure it, so that you're getting some of that aerobic and then recovering. Because the other thing is, from a how are we feeding our energies? How are we using our energy stores? You have to burn through all of those, you know, you have to burn through the ATP, you have to burn through the muscle glycogen, you have to burn through until you get to the point of fat production, which is why we would always say, hey, your first 20 minutes should be burn off all of your ATP, burn off all of your creatine kinase, burn off all of your, and then now you'll get
all the glucose out. And
yeah, that's how we would do it.
Very cool. So I guess if we summarize all of that, you want to start from the ground up, good shoes, good footfalls, good form and posture.
Yep.
Then move into start strength training. Once you got your running routine down, get some strength training, specifically lower body and glutes and core. And then start incorporating variety and intervals, and add in sprints and pulls and parachutes and hills and
parachutes. We didn't even get into pushes, pulls, sprints, and parachutes. Those are some of my faves.
Well, sled pushes is what I meant, but yeah, that idea. Yeah. So very cool. Do you have any tips, any juicy tidbits, any fun little kind of side bonus for running tips?
Use your arms. Like, honestly, for everybody, if you're getting tired, think about what you're doing with your arms. Your arm drive is the biggest and most important thing.
Well, and that kind of goes back to the original, like, what was it, physics, where for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So, and that was something that, again, part of, I guess we will kind of tip back to that. So part of my running, because I used to, kind of do this little in front of me thing.
Yeah.
And what that did is it, in rotating the hips like you showed, it also meant my footfalls, instead of being like in this nice little rail line, I was doing this kind of almost like little, this is an exaggeration, but there's this little crisscross.
I mean, like, honestly, like, if I had to, if there's one thing that you take home from all of it, it doesn't matter what level you are, my one take home thing is arm drive. Your knuckles should
With
brush your hips.
arms.
And you can do it in a chair, you can do it sitting on the ground, but if your knuckles are hitting your chair or if your knuckles are hitting the floor, you want them to brush by your hips. And that's it. And hold the potato chip hands. If you're crushing your potato chip, we've got a problem.
Love it. Well, thank you, Andee, for sharing your sports expertise and your personal training, elite level trainer here, the Olympian. So I appreciate it. And I look forward to picking your brain more on all of that because I find it fascinating. And I had originally hoped to podium this year in the OCRs, but 2020 kind of threw me off my training routine. So we'll see. I just want to do the best I can this year.
Yep. I get it.
My goal. So yeah, so let us know what questions you have. There's a whole world that we can get into with fitness and workout, nutrition and heart rate zones and all of that, just like there were, you know, tons we can get into with sleep and stress and nutrition and gut health and microbiome and yada, yada, yada. So let us know what you want to learn, what your goals are for the year and where you might need a little help and a little guidance. And maybe we can at least point you in the right direction of some names and some tips. And that's all I have.
Me too.
So happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Get out there, start running if that's part of your goals.
If it's not, tell us what your goals are and maybe we can help you with them.
Yeah, don't make yourself do it if you hate it.
Maybe we'll find another topic.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, guys, and we will see you later.
Bye.
Hey guys, a little bonus ending here. This is something we mentioned at the beginning, and I forgot about till after Andee hopped off the Zoom chat. But I showed my 3 types of shoes. So at the beginning of that chat, we discussed how it's important to get the right shoes for you. So another aspect of that is also to make sure you're getting the right shoes for what you're doing as well. So just to kind of give you an example, I have 3 different types of running shoes. And again, if you go talk to a professional at one of those good shoe stores, they're going to kind of know the difference, but just so you kind of know what you're looking for too. So again, this is my road shoe. It is a little thicker cushioning, but I try to keep it, it's called a 0 drop. So there's some shoes like Hoka has like this huge heel. And I find that the people who like that best are heel strikers. So I'm open to listening to something else, but I try to get one that's mostly flat across the bottom. So you're still kind of going for that pancake we talked about. The shoe tends to run 1/2 to 1 size bigger than my foot because when you run, your foot swells and it splays. So this is just my road running shoe. If I'm just going out for like an hour run, this is the one I'll do if I'm going to be on pavement. And that's kind of what I look for. Now you can get into, there is a lot of talk about minimalist shoes and, you know, running barefoot and Vibrams, and they used to have those. But just again, sort of a basic. So then I have a cross trainer shoe. So this, I know it looks like there's a cushion there, but it also is almost like a 0 drop. It's got a little more grip. So this is great when I'm doing a workout that includes running. A lot of times I'll do things where it's like we're doing boxing drills, and then after each 3-minute round, we do like a 1/2 mile run. So it's where it's good if I'm going to be lifting or running all within the same workout, little lighter, little sturdier foot and better grip for the lifting part. And then there's trail shoes. So again, these range all over the place, but these are my absolute favorite. They're ultra shoes. They've got this great grip for when I'm in the dirt and when I'm on a trail. They are thinned soles. They are meant to be more like a minimalist or a barefoot shoe. And the catch with that, so for you who might be thinking you want to start running and you want to try trail running for the first time, whether that's OCR or just trail, what I will tell you, and what I ignored, and what I should not have ignored, if you're used to, say, you run 3 miles, no problem, and you put on a pair of thinner shoes or more minimalist shoes or like a 0 drop shoe, do not run that 3 miles. It is using your foot muscles in a way you never have before if you're used to padding and cushioning and a thicker sole. So it's using your muscles in the foot, in the ankle, in the calves. And the first time I ran out in trail shoes, I was like, I feel great. I'm 3 miles in. I feel awesome. I'm just going to keep going. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, I'm strong. I've been running forever. that backfired. I was in so much pain the next day, like every little muscle along my shin, in the calf, everything was a wreck. So if you start to get into minimalist shoes, which I am a fan of for a whole other talks set of reasons, just remember to not push yourself so hard the first time. Take it easy, get used to it. Any shoe needs to be broken in as it is, regardless, and takes time so you don't get blisters, but in this case also so you don't destroy your foot muscles. So just kind of wanted to show my 3 favorite shoes that I've been using, and it's about time to replace. Actually, I have backup pair of these. I ordered several because I love them so much and they were going to go out of stock. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm really excited to see that within the Thrive group that I have on Facebook, not only are we targeting so much with GI and IBS and all of that, because that is a problem, runners, trots, you know, you don't want GI issues on the run, but I love that there's so many people looking to get into fitness more as well. So we're happy to talk about these fitness topics as well with you guys. So as always, just let us know, shoot me an email if you want to talk about nutrition. And also a shout out to my colleague, Brianne. She is a personal trainer and physical therapist who works specifically with OCR runners and athletes and like high, even if you're beginning, she works with people who run. Let's just put it that way. And she's got a great group and a great community that you can reach out to. So if you need help with running, I can get you hooked up with her. If you're looking for help with nutrition and GI issues, hit me up. You know where I'm at. And I hope you guys have a great start to the new year. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for listening in. I would love to know, where are you in your running journey? Are you just getting started? Are you trying to hit a new PR? Are you trying to place on a podium somewhere? What are your running goals? And whatever they are, like Andee says at the beginning, I really do believe that one of the most imperative things is the good shoes and the good form with proper foot strike and strength. So my mind was blown when I read the book, Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. Just our stride, the foot strike, the shoes, the muscles, it makes such a huge difference, not only in our performance, but our injury risk. And if you are struggling with an injury or chronic nagging pain, reach out. There is stuff you can do, whether it's from an inflammation standpoint, a nutrient and joint health standpoint, or a form standpoint. There are resources I can help you with or point you to. And one of those, again, that sneak peek, next week's guest is Brianne Showman. So she is a physical therapist who specializes in runners and running injuries. And she does online coaching for that, still getting great results. So she's going to talk about some things that you can do. So you don't want to miss that. And if you are a runner recreationally or athletically, competitively, or just looking to get into it and you want some community support, I invite you to my Facebook group, Empowered Healing, where we're sharing just exercise tips and motivation. We have healthy recipes, some gut health pointers, talk about inflammation, because all of that does affect not just your chronic health and your longevity, but it does play a role in your recovery as well, and your joint health and your muscles and your body composition goals. So basically, it's functional nutrition and lifestyle for functional fitness. Link is in the show notes. So thanks for listening. And remember, if your gut isn't functioning optimally, you aren't functioning optimally. Talk to you next week.